Welcome to Twins Movie Review. I'm Luke,
I'm Mark.
and we'll be reviewing Clue today.
Now, he says Clue. It's a movie called Clue.
That's right.
Yes. It's a board game?
Yeah, it's based on the Parker Brothers board game. I think it's Parker Brothers.
And it says that right away in the movie. Or does it say
Yes,
it?
it says it in the opening credits.
Opening credits, it says that it's based on a board game. And it's loosely because it's a board game that can go any which way. But if you've never played the board game, it doesn't matter. You'd still enjoy this movie. If you have played the board game, I think, because we both had,
Right.
so we can't really say it's this way. It's kind of like when people say, what's it like being a twin? I say, what's it like not being a twin? I don't know anything different, so I can't really tell you, I could share experiences and then you say, oh, that's different from my experience, so that's fine. But this, we had both seen, we both played the board game a decent amount as kids, and so we both watched it. And I think it's a little more enjoyable because there's you're like, oh, the billiard room, and oh, there's secret passages in this house that they're in. There's just fun things that you like because you specifically played the board game. That's all.
So if you know what the board game's about, you know that it's a murder mystery.
Yep. You're trying to figure out. I get it. Yeah, and it doesn't matter when you play the board game. Like, it's not like some modern board games which are a lot of fun where you have one person, like Among Us, which is a video game, but there's other board games too where one of you really did supposedly do it and everybody's trying to figure out that person. This is not so much that, I don't think.
No, it's a random person.
It's random.
And nobody knows.
Yeah, nobody knows who it is, and it could be your character, but that doesn't matter. It's not relevant to the game. So.
And that's one of the things I like about this movie is that they portray it like nobody knows.
Yeah.
None of them know who murdered anybody.
So the premise of this movie is that it's, yes, based on a board game, but that it is a bunch of people who show up at a creepy old mansion out in the middle of nowhere. And then somebody gets murdered and shenanigans ensue and they have to figure things out. Yep. But you need to keep in mind, there are some kind of dramatic, suspenseful moments in this movie. There's a point where they're searching the house and there are things going on that you're like, oh man, is somebody going to jump out from behind that curtain? That does happen in this movie. However, this is a comedy.
It's a dramedy.
It is a comedy.
Mainly comedy, yeah.
I'm telling you, you watch this, it is a comedy.
Yep.
There are dramatic moments, there are suspenseful moments, but it is a comedy through and through. Even in the dramatic moments, there's not, you can't go 30 seconds without the next thing happening and there being something funny in it. It's not forcing it down your throat, but it's just a comedy through and through. I thought about that. I was like, oh, it's a drama comedy. And then I look back, no, it's just a comedy. Even all the things, even though that deals with murder, you would think, oh, this is a murder suspense. No.
It's mainly comedy. Yeah.
It's comedy.
It's a little bit of drama, but mostly just comedy.
Yeah.
Which is good.
I like it, but the plot is effectively that all these people, so let's see if we can get, they're played by comedic actors too,
yes.
Which of course, so Christopher Lloyd.
He plays Professor Plum.
I do not remember all the actors' names.
Mrs. White is played by Madeline Kahn.
Madeline Kahn, who's amazing. Tim Curry, who plays Wadsworth the butler, who's spectacular.
Yeah.
He didn't steal the show. He's kind of a main thread that goes throughout it though, and he's just amazing. So all these characters that are in it though, they're like very good comedic actors. So it's Professor Plum, Mrs. White, Miss Scarlet, Mr. Green, that's my favorite, Colonel Mustard, and Miss Peacock.
Yep.
Those 6 show up. There are other tertiary characters. There is a motorist, there's a cop, there's a singing telegram that you barely see. There's secondary characters that are in the house to start. There's Wadsworth the butler, there's the maid Yvette, and there is the cook.
I don't think we ever know her name. The cook.
No, they just say cook.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's all the main characters.
That's all the characters, period, I think.
The characters, there's one or some that come in at the end, but they're not in there. They're there. So that's the premise, and the plot is that those people get called to basically get something revealed about somebody who's been blackmailing them for a long time. All of them have been being blackmailed. This is set in the 20s?
50s. 1954, I think.
I don't remember anything. I should look.
I just watched it recently.
I say I watched it,
Again,
but I don't remember. I don't remember specifics about things. So I think the movie was released in 1980.
Oh, and there's Mr. Body.
Something. Oh yeah, Mr. Body too. What was it? 1980.
It was released in, I think, 1985.
Okay, so
I could be wrong.
we'll find out. He'll post it up over here like we were wrong, or
Here,
I was
here.
I was right. Luke, I was right. But it's in the 50s, and there's a lot of, it's not dated humor though. Even if you're not familiar with history, you're just like, oh wow, okay. But the things that happen in the movie, all of it, the plot, all of it, because you're like, okay, so they're figuring out starts kind of slowly establishing our characters, building it up. Mr. Body shows up.
Do we want to give a rating before we do spoilers? And then
No.
the spoilers?
Oh, these are all spoilers.
All right, from there on, it's a spoiler.
Spoilers. So Mr. Body's the main guy who shows up, and the butler's like, yeah, he called you here, and he's the one who's been blackmailing you, and they're all mad about it, whatever. And
he brings the weapons.
yes, he brings in a bunch of weapons that, like a rope, a candlestick, a gun, like a lot of things that could be used to murder people.
Right.
And he is trying to, because he's been blackmailing them all, he's basically trying to take care of a loose end from somebody, something. It's something that to me never made sense, but maybe it did to you.
Well, the idea was that how it was set up was he's blackmailing them, and then he brings them in to be like, hey, we're just gonna... Yeah, I never really I'd have to go back and watch.
We're missing something, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't. To the plot that he says, yeah, I brought you all in because...
Maybe he's going to increase blackmailing them.
Yeah, or I want to see, or one of you's threatening to tell, and if they tell that I've been blackmailing them, I'm going to spill all your secrets or something like that.
He says that Wadsworth was going to tell.
Oh, yeah, so Wadsworth is going to tell, and so basically not telling them to, but saying, here's these murder weapons, do what you will, and, you know, maybe one of you kills Wadsworth. And then he, like, shuts off the lights. So everything around that, like they're eating dinner and they're sitting in the lounge and all these things are funny. They're comedically done, but there's not a lot of hard hitting jokes yet. There's a few that hit like early, but the great part about it is once the murder happens, and it's not Wadsworth that gets killed, it's Mr. Body.
Yep.
Mr. Body is killed, and they check and they're like, he's dead. Oh no, and maybe it was poison and all this stuff. That's when the jokes start. When the murder happens is when the jokes start hitting, and it's funny stuff because it's irreverent. You're like, oh, this person just got murdered, and you know, one of the guys points says, maybe it was poison, and Miss Peacock goes, ah, and she's screaming and yelling, and then Professor Plum, like, oh no, Mr. Green, yeah, comes over and slaps her silly, and he's like, I had to stop her screaming, and it's done very comedically. It's very funny. Mm-hmm. So you forget, oh wait, yeah, a person was just killed. So many things happen to where other people end up getting killed, but it's none of the main characters. So Wadsworth, who pretends even to be killed at one point, but Wadsworth and then the other 6 characters who've entered the house they don't get killed, but all of those other like tertiary and secondary characters get killed at some point, and they have to figure out that somebody is killing all these people. Yep. Something's happening. We can't leave. Should we call the police? And all these things happen. All of those things, they pull you along to where you won't feel confused quite. You'll almost feel confused.
Yep. There's a lot of throwbacks to the game.
Yep. Again, you'll appreciate it.
Like Mr. Body.
Mm-hmm.
The different weapons, the different rooms, secret passageways. There's a few different running gags in the movie.
Yes. Running gags, if you're a fan of like, haha, they did that before, or it fits well here, they do quite a few running gags. There's just a lot of comedic things that happen in the movie. But if you're looking for one that you're like, ooh, it's a good murder mystery to where I can figure things out, you're not going to get that here, like an Agatha Christie or something. No. You're not going to get that because the game could end any, number of different ways. The same happens here, and it actually happens there. It gets to the end of the movie. the cops come busting in again. That's the characters that there's a guy who's leading them come busting in. They're like, all right, who did it? And you know,
3 different
they
endings.
say, here's who did it, and this is what happened. You're like, oh man, okay, I get it, because Wadsworth talks it out and explains what happened, or somebody, one of the characters, the main characters, talks it out and explains what happens. The great part is it says, so that's how it could have happened, but here's another way it could have happened. And it makes sense, though. It completely makes sense up to that point where you're like, oh, this person was paired with this person when we split up, and then they left, throttled this person, and came back, and then did this. And you're like, oh, wow, it really could have ended that way. They did that way on purpose. And then they say, you know, and here's another one. And then the last one they say, but here's what really happened. Just so you can end with like, okay, this is the actual ending. Like, this is what happened. But it didn't matter. It could have ended with the first one.
Yeah,
You're like, oh, wow, okay.
It flowed really well.
Yes.
All the acting was well done, I thought. Well, you got professional actor types. So
yes.
They're seasoned.
Well,
so.
I think that the way it pulls you along, pulls you through it is just so fun, and you get caught up in it. There's such a good energy to it that comes from doing comedic acting, that there's just go energy without it being overly confusing, you know, fly over people's head and them saying, wait, who was with what now? They explain things, and even when they don't, or when it's too fast, it's to make it funny.
Well, and then if it's going a little too fast, sometimes one of the characters would be like, hey,
wait, I don't understand. You know, yeah. I didn't, so we should talk about, we basically have said a lot of things we like. What are some things you didn't like?
Man, there really wasn't much of anything I didn't like about this movie. Maybe it being a little slurping in the, someone were slurping their soup in the dining room.
There's a lot of slurping in that scene because there's soup in it.
Yeah, which is could be a gag, or no, it's not a running gag.
Little known fact: Luke doesn't like mouth noises.
Right.
I love mouth noises, so it's a good balance.
What?
Wow, you're really struggling, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what.
I already had mine locked and loaded. I thought about it because I knew it was coming to.
So, what did you not like about this movie?
Nothing. It's not a perfect movie, but I didn't have anything that I didn't like. It's kind of cheap, but it's true. It's true. Even some things that you're like, this was fine, I suppose. It was just a part of the movie. It wasn't something I didn't like. Like, if there was a character, you get mad at me or whatever, but if there was a character, like Zombieland 2 is a movie I've seen that I like. In Zombieland 2, there is a character who I don't care for. I didn't think the acting was done very well, but maybe it was. I don't know. It's subjective. It's art.
There's one character in that.
There's one character that I didn't like in that movie. I was like, the actress, she was a littler, Abigail Breslin. She was a littler girl in the first Zombieland. In the second one, I didn't like her as much. So while I didn't think it detracted from the movie, and I still love that movie, great, I still didn't like that specific thing about it. I can not like that, oh, this one character died and I really liked them in the movie, or this happened or that. But that's part of the movie, and that's part of the ups and downs and the emotions, so it's fine. This movie, Clue, I didn't have anything like that I'm like, no, I didn't like this actor's portrayal, or this character wasn't fleshed out very well, so it didn't do it for me. No, I didn't have anything.
Or they're just not likable or whatever. Like, there was no sexual content, really. There was,
Well, I mean...
Well, one of the gals is a prostitute, or a madam.
Yeah, she handles prostitutes. I mean, Yvette is a French maid who...
You see some cleavage.
Has boobs for days. Like,
you do see some cleavage.
Yeah. So it's not that there's no sexual. It's just not overtly sexual for the sake of.
You get some kissing.
And even with that, some kissing.
Yeah.
There's a funny scene with kissing.
Yeah, they play it up.
It's a little dark, but it's
Yeah, they got a lot of gallows humor in there.
Yes.
Let's see. There's no cussing in it that I remember.
No, there is, but it's again moderate. Violence, people get murdered, but there's not like showing people getting stabbed and whatever.
When was there cussing in it? I mean, I'm not saying.
I owe you $5 if there are no swears in this movie. Not a D word, not an H word.
Wait, H word?
H.
Oh.
It's like heck, but it's double hockey sticks instead.
See, I guess depending on how they use it.
I don't think they said you know,
Right.
instead of going to heaven, hell is the place that I think you are bound. No.
No, yeah, I think they might have.
There are.
I'll have to look back.
If you care about that, this is not G-rated. It's PG, and they're dealing with murder. There's some sexualization of things. There's, again, it's nothing crazy over the top.
The murder's not graphic, really.
It's all pretty mild. You should be.
There's a little fake blood. That's it.
Unless you're like us and you're sheltered really specifically for some things growing up that you weren't allowed to see, you'd be fine watching this with teens or even less than. But
depends how mature your children are.
No judgment for how you raise your children. It's great. I'm just letting you know that's kind of the spectrum we're looking at.
Yeah. Nowadays, I'd rate it. What would I rate it nowadays? Probably PG-13.
Is it PG-13? I'd rate it PG.
Actually, PG because, like we said, there's not a lot of any of this.
Yep. No.
In it.
Okay.
I just think with the murder, but it's not graphic. It's not any of that. So, what did you like about this movie?
So, I liked about this movie that the comedic timing was really good. It was well paced, and a lot of the actors, like the characters that they play, I didn't feel like, other than Tim Curry's character, he has to be a little more central. He's kind of leading the group type of thing. I didn't feel like any one character. I also liked the fact that all the characters, all 6 of them, had kind of equal. It didn't feel like any one was the star. Like, we have Jim Carrey was in a modern comedy, whatever, and then other little low-level actors or no-name stars. Jim Carrey is, even though it's an ensemble cast, Jim Carrey's the real star. No, it didn't feel like that. It felt like all 6, it was pretty even. Yep. That was nice. Other than, again, Tim Curry, who's a genius and deserves it, but it was kind of nice because he was kind of leading things.
Yeah, like you said, the driving thread.
Yeah, so he was the thread that went through everything. But, yeah, it was a really strong cast that I didn't feel like they were basically like, well, let's not do anything with Colonel Mustard. Or, well, if Christopher Lloyd, who's amazing, was in Back to the Future, he's a great actor, we need to make sure we feature him this way. No, they all had their characters that they played. They were all a team. It was cool. Those are the things I liked. What about you?
Well, I like all those things. Also, the story was really well written. Mm-hmm. It was, like you said, very well acted.
Yep.
The soundtrack was really good, too. And
I didn't bring that up. Good point.
It was... The soundtrack and all the references were to the time period, but even though the references were to the time period, they, like you said, they weren't dated.
Yeah.
They were to where somebody could still be like, oh yeah, that's relevant, this. But the soundtrack, you know how in some movies they'll use music and it's like, okay, that's not really fit in the time period. No, it was all from the...
Shake, rattle, and roll.
Yeah, from the 50s.
I said shake, rattle. Like, I'll never forget that. And when I hear that music, that specific, or... Da-da-ding-dong, a-ding-a-ling-a-lang, doo-da-dee, that one.
Yep.
Oh, life could be a dream.
Life could be a dream, sweetheart.
If only... That one, and the shake, rattle, and roll, and probably more, but those 2 specifically that come up in the movie, I think of Clue. Like, it's iconic.
I also like how the characters, you could see them, their mood and whatnot, them develop throughout the.
There were no static characters.
Yeah, develop through the movie. Like after a while, seeing so many dead bodies, they're just like, yeah, we don't.
It's another comedic thing when they come at the end after like things get. Oh no, this whole big thing we were trying to whatever, and they're all back up and they're like, oh boy, like power came back on or something, and they walk in the billiard room and there's
maid.
A
vet laid there.
Laying there dead, and they're like, they just walk in, they don't go, oh no, or anything, they just all walk in and they're like,
don't walk out.
It's just like, they're so defeated. Just like, of course. And then go in another one, of course, another one, all right. But it's also, it's not realistic at all in a lot of the ways. You're like, oh, this is the way people would react. No, not in any way. Like, it's still funny, but again, that's why it's comedic. Like about halfway, 2/3 of the way through the movie, they're coming back. They're like, "Oh, we looked at this thing. What? How are we doing?" And Colonel Mustard goes in. He goes, "We're still good. 2 dead bodies." Like, and they're like, "Oh, good. 2 dead bodies in the cellar or wherever they put them."
Yep.
They're like, "Yep, we're still good. 2 corpses." Mm-hmm. And they're all just so blasé about it, And nobody would be.
You don't have anybody freaking out.
Well. Not in the way that you would normally. Like, there's a few characters who freak out hysterically and comedically, but not the way that you probably would in this actual situation.
So what would we give this movie on a scale of 1 to 11? I would give it a 10, I'm thinking, from 1 to 11.
1 to 11?
Because I'm thinking there was something I didn't like. Like, if they did swear, then I would knock it down a star for me. But
they're swearing in it, I'm telling you. But, here's the thing. Swearing, I don't swear. Lucas tends to not swear.
Definitely not in public or around anybody else.
And I have sworn before. I'm not perfect. I've screwed up a lot of things in my life. But I tend to appreciate it more when people can refrain from using words that they could have expressed themselves better using other words. But instead they put in an expletive. Instead they use language that's more vulgar or something. I don't hold it against anybody for doing that. Again, I've done it myself and I understand the point behind it. But it should be noted, even though that's my personal stance on me swearing, not only do I not hold that against other people, but I understand that swearing can be used for great emphasis to say, hey, this is serious enough. Like, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. When you say, what the heck is going on here? But you use the H-E double hockey sticks word. When you say that, it does give different emphasis to it. When you use profanity, it is funnier because it's not, it is a little taboo in society. Yeah, it's how you use it. And so I don't look down on it for that. When it's also if you're trying to portray something that it's realistic that this group of people swear a lot or they say this word a lot.
Like in Black Hawk Down, when some of them swear when they're in the middle of combat.
That's what you would say, or those are the types of swears that are used. There's some movies where you're like, they say this word a lot because that group uses that word a lot, and so they all say that word a lot. Swearing is no different from that. It's part of the English language that's used for that. So I'm fine with it. I would prefer it not to be. If we review a movie and we're like, hey, this is ridiculous, it's just all the time and you didn't need to use it, then yeah, I would say that. But this even though this has swears in it, I'm telling you, it's not the level that it doesn't distract or detract from anything.
And so I think that's probably why I would probably rate it probably an 11 then, because like you said, it doesn't detract from it. If they did use it, which you're saying they did, and I just gotta go back and look.
Oh, we'll look. He'll put it in editing.
That they were used in I want to say correctly, but that's not the right term.
Well, yeah, correct for that character, right, or whatever. Yeah,
it was fine. A fitting way to use it.
Yeah, I think are we allowed to do points like 10.3 or 9.5 or whatever?
Yeah, if you want. So I'll do like a 10.5 maybe.
All right.
Something.
So I'm gonna give this movie, because again, it's assuming if you're not into. So I like sci-fi, I like fantasy, I like things like that. But I'm not going to score a movie higher because it's in a genre that I tend to like. Or if it's a time travel movie. Ooh, I like that trope. That's fun. Time travel. That's great. Just because it has that, I'm not going to just score it higher because of that. I'm scoring it based on, okay, it's this type of movie. If it's an a biography, like about Elvis or something, I'm going to judge it. It's a work of art. Did I appreciate the art and how much I did? For that, I would give it probably a 10.8. Like, it's about as close to perfect as you can get. But I would guarantee I could go back and there's little things that I'm like, they held on this shot a little too long. Or maybe little things that I could probably nitpick to where it's not perfect. But there will probably never be any movie that I'll give an 11 to. So
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look.
Yep.
So that is our review for Clue. Good. Twins movie review.
The Twins recommend Clue.
Yes.
that you definitively go check it out if you haven't seen it, or if it's been a long time, go watch it. There's maybe some things that you missed or forgot about. So.
Correct. So this has been Twins movie review.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe only if you liked this video, if you have a decent comment, or you want to subscribe. Otherwise, do what you want, live your life. This is our friend Beth Ann.
Yeah.
Get lower so you can the camera right there. Okay,
there
so Beth Ann was in a stage adaptation of the movie Clue, and you were Mrs. White, who's Madeline Kahn's character.
Yep.
Temperance. You have a million outtakes of my dog drinking water over and over and over. You've drank plenty, and then you start,
Weirdo.
I drank too much water.
So, what did you like about this?
You're going to have to include like all 5 of those. So, what did you like about this movie?